Shan Qigong system, and it's his first exercise, and in many ways it's the most important. And it's deceptively easy in that this looks really simple. It looks like any fool could do this, and they can. It's just that if you do it for half an hour a day correctly, it's very remarkable. Very remarkable.
Forward, pushing the chest out a little bit, lifting up with the tailbone.
Shoulder width or thereabouts, could be a little wider, that's okay. And have your feet parallel approximately on the inside line. And then roll your pelvis under just a little, and then roll your thighs outwards, and then drop down. And if you do this right, you're going to elongate your lumbar spine. So in Chinese medicine from the Neijing doesn't really give us a lot of information about the theoretical basis of how the back shoe point system is structured. All the Neijing does is, is my back curved? A little bit, yeah. All the Neijing does, all the Neijing does is it says where the back shoe points are. Now the back shoe points are the points that on the bladder channel that's running either side of the spine that communicate with the internal organs. Right? Each internal organ has a connection from whence you can control the functioning of that organ, because that's pretty useful medically. The Neijing says where they are, doesn't say why, right? So let's examine this a little bit in relation to the lumbar spine and the sacrum and the tailbone a little bit. So let's start with bladder 21, which is right here, okay? So bladder 21 is said in Chinese medicine to be the back shoe point of the triple burner, right? And we know that the triple burner, Sanjiao, obviously is fire, right? It's a fire energy. You could say it's fire interacting with water. That would be more accurate. But it's obviously the triple burner is these three zones inside your body where the metabolic fire-water interaction takes place. It's your belly, your solar plexus, and your chest, right? So, and a triple burner in Chinese medicine is always assigned to fire, ministerial fire, 生火. So, Neijing says that that's where the control point for the triple burner is. It doesn't say why, but it doesn't say why any of these are where they are, but it says where they are. There's a beautiful saying in Chinese teaching, ancient Chinese teaching, and I think it's from Confucius. Oh, Confucius says, the master lifts up one corner to reveal what's underneath. It is up to the disciples to lift up the other corners. Right? So the Neijing tells us where they are, doesn't tell us why they are. And the why becomes, I think, kind of interesting as we proceed. So the next point that we know about it, so that's bladder 21, UB21, and Sanjiao Shu, right, triple burner. I'm actually going to write that. I can't really write, turns out. There we go, kind of. So the next point down from that, did I do it wrong? Is it 22? I did it wrong. Delete. I should be saying 22. Oh, do I have an eraser? Eraser? I need an eraser. This should be 22. My brain is just going into, like, you know, drawing charts, meltdown. Sorry, numbers were wrong. 22.
Drink some more tea.
I know, right? So, the next point down is bladder 23, which is always associated with the kidneys, right? Okay, fair enough. Got it? You all know that. Anybody who knows Chinese medicine kind of knows that, right? And if you don't know Chinese medicine, that's okay, because now you do. So let's jump down a little bit and take a look at something else. Let's go down to the sacrum and look at the acupuncture points. Thank you. Good. Look at the acupuncture points relative to the sacrum. So we know that the back shu point relative to S1 right here is UB27, right? Bladder 27. And the Neijing says that bladder 27 corresponds to the small intestine. Okay? And the Neijing also says that the small intestine is a fire organ. Okay? It's paired with the heart. It's that digestion thing. You all know this if you know Chinese. And if you don't, I hope you will. So the next point down is bladder 28. And bladder 28 is associated with the bladder, the urinary bladder. These are the back shu points, control points for those organs. What does the character shu mean? Just by the way, we're going to talk a lot about shu points. So here's the character shu. And if you want, you can put a body radical in front of it, but you actually don't have to. It's a very, very, very commonly used word in the Neijing to describe the function of certain points. Generally, the more interesting points. They're all called shu points, right? All the 5 element points on the arms are all called shu points. This whole back system is called the back shu points. Right? So what does shu mean? Anybody know what shu means?
The house?
Say again?
The house?
No, it doesn't mean
Transport.
house.
Influence.
Okay, in modern Chinese understanding, it means transport. And in fact, in modern Chinese, it's often used for transport companies and things like that. What it's actually a depiction of is a barge. You know, you have canals, right? And so on canals, you have barges. And the ancient technology back at the time of the writing of the Neijing was all canals. Well, you know, it's all based on canals. All of ancient civilization was based on control of waterways, whether it was, you know, Babylonia or China or, you know, the Nile or wherever, right? So this is a depiction of the loading and unloading of goods, freight, material from a barge, and a barge is, of course, a little kind of, you know, thing traveling in a canal, in a specific channel, right? So, in other words, it's talking about an exchange of something. Something is exchanged, right? You can look at it very materially, or you can also, obviously, it's an analogy, right? You don't know what barges are. It's interesting, though. So, at each of these points in the system, we've got an exchanging taking place. We'll figure out what in a little while. So, this is a pattern, right? Can you see this very obvious pattern emerging here? We've got 5 lumbar vertebrae, and we've actually got 5 sacral vertebrae. And we've got a pattern demonstrated by the Neijing for 2 of those 5, which is fire, water, going from above below, or water, fire, going from below to above. Well, what you know about fire and water in Chinese medicine is that they are in the ke controlling cycle relationship to each other, right? Water puts out fire, last time I checked, according to 5-element theory, right? So, and bear in mind, you've got 5 lumbar vertebrae, and you've got 5 sacral vertebrae, and you've got 5 elements. It just gets easier. So, it's not too much of a stretch of the imagination to think, well, if it's fire, this one's fire, and this one's water, right? Water puts out fire. Well, what controls water? Oh, earth soaks up water. What controls earth? Oh, wood covers earth. Oh, what controls wood? Well, metal chops wood. Now you're looking at an interesting schemata where we go, metal chops wood, wood covers earth soaks up water, water puts out fire. Fire melts metal chops wood, wood covers earth soaks up water, water puts out fire. In other words, the ke cycle and the reverse ke cycle are expressed in the sacrum and the lumbar spine. That's what I'm going to suggest the Neijing is implying by telling us this is triple bone and this is kidney, this is small intestine, this is bladder. Now, if you think about it, it doesn't make any sense to have S1 control the small intestine unless you're really concerned with fire, right? Because the small intestine is not at the level of your first sacral vertebra, right? Your small intestine is here, which would sort of correspond to some stuff back here. It wouldn't correspond to S1, really. So why in the Neijing do we want it to correspond to S1, except perhaps that each of the vertebrae corresponds to an element, right? And if the small intestine is a fire element, it's got to match to one of these vertebrae. Get the idea? So what evidence is there that I'm not just smoking weird stuff in my pipe? None. No, no, let me backtrack. There is evidence. There's lots of evidence. So I started looking at this and I realized that each of these points actually does correspond to each of those elements, and you can examine that in the naming and the functioning of the points, and it's pretty interesting. So let's take a look at that.